Bine v-am regăsit, doamnelor și domnilor, de aici, din Clinica de Medicină Holistică Aura Vita, alături de doamna doctor Florinela Balan. Astăzi vorbim despre cum hrănim cel de-al doilea creier. Doamne doctor, v-ați transformat total în fizic.
Știți, eu lucrez în 5D și vă asigur că am metamorfozat toate planurile energetice.
Ce înseamnă energetic această transformare?
Să știți că se numește upgradare energetică.
Se observă clar în fizic.
Da, dumneavoastră ați fost surprinsă. Am slăbit 10 kg.
Cum ați reușit?
Știți, acum a venit momentul, pentru că am încercat de foarte mult timp să slăbesc. Era o preocupare mai veche de-a mea, dar acum chiar am reușit. Aveam kilograme în plus și nu am vrut să forțez acest lucru, nu am vrut să scap de ele, să zicem așa, cumva în mod special, pentru că fiecare aspect al nostru are un rost al lui și știam că la un moment dat, la nivel subconștient, aceste kilograme în plus vor deține pentru mine o anumită informație. Când am putut să procesez această informație pe care ele o dețineau, fiindcă a venit momentul, am reușit relativ ușor să scap în 6 luni de kilogramele în plus.
Sunt curioasă, care era acea informație?
Era legată de iubirea de sine, adică respectul de sine pe un nivel superior al femeii, al medicului și al vindecătoarei din mine. Fiecare dintre noi, știți că dintre cei evoluați spiritual avem iubire față de sufletul lui Dumnezeu din noi, mai mult sau mai puțin în funcție de cât de evoluați suntem. Și la un moment dat, și acest lucru s-a întâmplat la mine, am simțit că în evoluția mea spirituală, corpul fizic mă trăgea în jos, era pe ultimul loc, ori noi trebuie să fim în armonie.
În 5D.
Exact, în toate corpurile. Și atunci am înțeles ceva extraordinar. Am știut că acele kilograme în plus erau calea mea, erau portalul meu spre următorul meu nivel spiritual. Ele îmi indicau de fapt cum să ajung pe următoarea treaptă.
Medicul holistic lucrează și interpretează toate mesajele corpului.
Da, într-adevăr, medicul holistic lucrează și interpretează mesajele corpului, boala în sine fiind un mesaj. Deci noi cu asta ne ocupăm. Practic ce am făcut? Am început un proces profund de detoxifiere, natural, bineînțeles, și blând de asemenea, în 6 luni de zile, iar corpul meu a reacționat firesc. Am slăbit, să zicem, natural, iar energetic mi-am ridicat vibrația și am evoluat. Acest proces a avut un impact în toate corpurile mele energetice, a reverberat, să spunem așa, în toate dimensiunile, în cel mental, pentru că am început să fiu la alt nivel mental, emoțional, mai echilibrată și spiritual de asemenea.
Cum hrănim al doilea creier, titlul emisiunii noastre de astăzi? Bănuiesc că are legătură cu procesul dumneavoastră de transformare.
Da, m-am gândit să fac o emisiune pe această temă. Știți, din emisiunea trecută, că al doilea creier este în abdomen, am spus asta, și anume intestinul subțire este al doilea creier. Deoarece este foarte interesant și aș vrea astăzi să completez emisiunea trecută și să spun că, vedeți dumneavoastră, intestinul subțire este legat de inimă. Nu știu dacă știți că inima este legată de iubire. Iubirea este combustibilul energetic al corpului, așa cum sângele este în fizic, cum este combustibilul în fizic. Și știți ce? În medicina chinezească este foarte interesant. Organele sunt pereche, yin și yang. Știți asta, că am făcut. Ficatul este cuplat cu vezica biliară, rinichiul cu vezica urinară, plămânul cu colonul, splina cu stomacul. Inima este organul yin și cine credeți că este yangul inimii?
Intestinul subțire.
Exact.
Deci este legat de cuvântul iubire, de inimă.
Exact. Yang, în general, înseamnă protecție. Deci, întâi se îmbolnăvește intestinul subțire și apoi inima.
Inima și energia iubirii, iar în fizic, vasele de sânge irigă, hrănesc creierul, sistemul nervos, o dereglare în plus sau în minus a fluxului normal de sânge care irigă creierul.
Da, și duce la accidente vasculare cerebrale de tip hemoragic, respectiv ischemic, în anumite zone din creier.
Energetic, creierul este alimentat de meridianul trei focare.
Da, într-adevăr, toți telespectatorii noștri știu de acest meridian 3 focare, dar acest meridian 3 focare înseamnă, ce înseamnă 3 focare? Înseamnă așa, primul focar este la nivelul abdomenului, următorul este toracii și ultimul este în zona capului. Energia se formează în abdomen, în primul focar, și apoi urcă prin celelalte focare spre creier. Focarul abdominal este foarte important, deci este vital pentru că acolo începe energia să se formeze.
Practic, el corespunde dantienului inferior de care am mai vorbit.
Da, exact. Legat de energia rinichiului, acest dantien este de obicei și ea este importantă în zonă, dar în fizic focarul abdominal se referă concret la digestie, adică la ce mâncăm și la cum procesăm hrana, de fapt.
Adică la calitatea alimentelor pe care le ingerăm și la buna funcționare a tubului digestiv, stomac, ficat, pancreas, splină, intestin subțire și colon.
Exact. Și să nu uităm de fapt că organul care le coordonează pe toate energetic este mezenterul și am avut o emisiune despre acest lucru și el este foarte, foarte important în dinamica de fapt digestivă.
Doamnă doctor, medicul și pacientul acordă o mare atenție organelor digestive și tratamentului lor, dar cine se ocupă de calitatea hranei, deoarece este la fel de importantă?
Medicul nutriționist, în medicină, teoretic, el se ocupă, dar cine ajunge la medicul nutriționist? De exemplu, dumneavoastră ați fost până acum?
În ultima perioadă nu, dar mă mai informez, sunt surse internet.
Nu, dar nu ați fost la medicul nutriționist.
Nu.
Trebuie să știți că foarte puține persoane ajung la medicul nutriționist. De obicei ajungi când ai o tulburare, da? De metabolism, obezitate sau diabet, de exemplu.
Este insuficient, să înțeleg, dacă este important, dar este foarte important cum ne alimentăm, ca să avem primul și al doilea creier cu energie corectă. Ar trebui să învățăm în școli cum să ne alimentăm sănătos.
Sigur că da, pentru că dacă nu mergem la medicul nutriționist și citim decât din când în când, da, s-ar putea să nu avem surse sigure, internetul nu totdeauna este o sursă sigură pentru noi, și acolo pot să fie interese, o să vedem, și atunci este foarte important să începem un proces educațional la nivel de societate să învățăm. E mai complicat deci decât atât. Nu este vorba numai de nutriționist până la urmă, ci este vorba de niște principii de hrană și alimentare implementate și perpetuate incorect de-a lungul timpului. Se pare că ar trebui să ne hrănim cu mai multe legume, așa se spune, decât cu carne, cum ne alimentăm noi, inclusiv mai puține, de exemplu, produse din animale, adică lapte, brânză, mai puține ouă, care sunt și ele tot proteine animale. Și ar trebui să fim vegetariani, de fapt.
În ce măsură?
Să știți că atunci când avem cancer, da, exclusiv, adică ar trebui să mâncăm numai vegetale, pentru că știți că celula canceroasă se hrănește cu proteine. Dar acum este vorba și de calitatea hranei. Este recomandat să fie neprocesată, pentru că aceea este cea mai sănătoasă pentru corp.
Neprocesată înseamnă mai puțin gustoasă.
Așa este, da. Aici este problema. Ar trebui să ne intereseze dacă e sănătoasă, nu dacă e gustoasă. Există o industrie alimentară, știm, ca și o industrie farmaceutică, care sunt interesate să vândă, sunt interesate de consumuri crescute pe scară largă pentru profit. Și deci să comercializeze alimente gustoase și mai puțin sănătoase pentru corpul uman.
Dar nu este greu să mănânci numai legume, plante?
Să știți că atunci când ai cancer și puține variante, nu.
Since a small child, I've had a love of plants, to have this living organism within this tiny little package, a seed, and you plant it, and it grows into such beauty and potential.
I am a product of the state of New Jersey. I went to Rutgers, the state university, got a botany degree, and then went on to the state medical school. I received standard academic training, then went on to an internal medicine residency in Washington, D.C. at George Washington as a newly minted doctor. My father, who was an attorney, 69 years of age, was suddenly diagnosed with end-stage metastatic pancreatic cancer. He was given a prognosis of 1 to 3 months to live, offered some standard treatment, and because there's very little success with that agent, my father decided to do nothing and just go home and prepare for death. I knew in my world that I'd come from, there was just nothing available. And even still to this day, there's very little available for pancreatic cancer. So I went to my local library and finally came across some books on food, brought these books home for my father. The books were on a whole unrefined plant food way of eating. He grasped onto it and completely changed his diet. And a year later, we went back. When the doctor saw my father walk in, he looked a bit shaken. He asked my father what he was doing there and why, basically, why was he still alive? My father started to tell him about broccoli and brown rice, and the doctor lost complete interest in what my father was saying. That was the point for me that changed what I would do as a doctor.
Our medical community in general has really focused on symptoms of disease. We see it throughout our whole pharmaceutical industry and our whole approach to care.
And, you know, we have this acute care model in healthcare today, and it was designed 100 years ago to treat communicable diseases and injury. And we're still trying to treat chronic disease now with that same acute care model, but it doesn't work. We're trying to treat diabetes and heart disease the way we treat strep throat with pills, but it doesn't work.
I feel a little disenfranchised, if you will, to have gone through 4 years of medical school and 6 years of training after medical school and never been introduced to the idea that your health is so closely related to what you eat.
When I entered into practice, I had patients constantly ask me, what should I eat, doc? How should I exercise? What should I do? I would throw out little arbitrary words and say, be good the majority of the time. Live by the 4/7 rule. If you do well 4 out of 7 days, that's good enough. You know, I started to become troubled by that, you know, and that I was actually giving advice, professional advice to individuals when they were asking without a fund of knowledge.
Everybody knows that doctors don't get any really meaningful education about nutrition.
Nutrition is really something that maybe you get 1 hour, maybe you get 2 hours.
Nutrition in the 1970s in my medical school was very, very limited.
I really still feel that it's nearly criminal.
There really haven't been many opportunities to discuss nutrition in depth because the topic only comes up in passing.
Maybe they assumed that we knew.
The average physician in this country has less than 20 minutes of nutrition training, period.
Well, nobody teaches you anything about nutrition in medical school.
What I was taught was nobody changes their diet anyway, so just, you know, do what you can.
I hate to say it, but your physician probably knows less about nutrition than you do.
We're taught to treat diseases after they occur. We're not taught how to prevent them in the first place.
I think that society in general has a broken relationship with food. We're a society that's chronically fed from the time we get up in the morning until the time we go to bed. When you think about it, the only species that are obese and chronically ill are us and the pets we keep warm and fed. And they get exactly the same diseases.
If you eat the same things that most Americans eat, you're going to get the same diseases that most Americans get.
I'm a steak guy.
Fish.
Sushi, actually.
I like meat. Anything protein-based.
Steak, potatoes, greens.
Good cheese. I don't really eat processed cheese.
Lasagna.
Hamburgers, french fries.
Red Bull and a cigarette, which I don't need neither or. But you know what, I'm so old now, I'm just going to do it anyway.
It's sad, but I think I can say this honestly, probably 95% of America has no idea how to eat. Who taught them? Grandma? No, it's the television that's teaching them.
Nutritious, delicious. Above all else, beef. It's what's for dinner. Got milk? Ah, the power of cheese.
Eggs. Incredible energy for body and mind.
Well, I grew up in Texas eating meat 4 or 5 times a day, you know, and I liked it.
I ate a high salt, sugar, fat, processed food, pizza, ice cream, candy kind of diet.
I was pretty much a standard cholesterolholic that grew up on a dairy and a beef farm.
We loved our cheese, we loved our ice cream and yogurt and steaks and hamburgers on the grill.
Grew up on a dairy farm, actually milking cows, but believing along the way that the good old American diet was as good as it gets.
Certain foods are essential. We must have them daily for the sake of health. Meat, cheese, fish, poultry, vegetables, green and yellow, fruits, 2 or more servings daily, at least 1 raw, citrus fruit or tomato often, and eggs, 3 to 5 a week, but 1 a day preferred. Cereal and bread, rich golden butter, and milk, at least 1 quart of milk a day.
I've come to see aging in America as a function of accumulated abuse of the human body.
Then everybody gather round and dig into those sizzly, juicy Armour Star Franks. Hot dog diggity, are they good? Armour Star Franks. Because Wonder Soft Whipped bread is made from batter, not dough. It has no holes. Get Wonder Soft Whipped.
One of the main reasons that we started eating processed food was it encouraged the shelf life of the product.
We were taught that these packaged foods were healthier and they were easier and they made our lives better. And many times it was a white refined food.
But of course, refined means about 97% of the fiber is gone, and enriched means most of the nutrients have been stripped out, but we've sprayed a few synthetic chemicals back on for you, and now we call it enriched.
Our parents, you know, God bless them, they didn't know any better. The information wasn't out there. Meat and potatoes, that's how you live.
This summer, try our new grilled chicken margarita pizza.
Who knew crab goes with everything? Whoever put crab on this salmon? On a burger. And don't forget the bacon and onions seared inside fresh ground beef.
Introducing Grill Dogs, flame grilled to perfection and made with 100% beef. Get them now, only at Burger King.
The standard American diet is not working. It's not good for us.
I think we haven't really focused on the quality of food that we take. We're more interested in convenience.
I mean, the whole fast food thing on television, you know, all the pizza commercials, burger commercials, just fast food that you make at home, stuff you take off the shelf and you pour it out of a box and put some water in it. You got an instant meal here. It's like, oh my God, are we killing ourselves?
Early on in this process, it was kind of confusing because I would read a study that would say this is good for you, and then another one would say no, that's actually bad for you. Something else is good for you.
So the industry just has to keep the public confused, which they've been doing a very good job at.
I was so misinformed as a young adult that I didn't know how to eat properly and I didn't know how to balance my diet.
I was, eating what I thought was health food, salmon, big hunks of salmon.
I think it can get confusing to the general public because all they hear are sensationalized headlines about, oh, this fat is good for you, this fat is bad for you, you want a high protein diet, stay away from carbohydrates. Well, we don't eat food like that. We eat food.
All that we need is enough confusion. And then people that throw up their hands and I'll forget it, I'll just do whatever I want to do.
Drink your milk for strong bones and teeth, and it turns out to be exactly the wrong way around.
And almost a little betrayed that we'd been told our whole lives that we had to eat, animal protein and drink milk in order to be healthy.
But that's what we grew up with as a culture, so we can't be blamed for it, but we have to break those habit patterns.
Doamne doctor, este într-adevăr o stare de confuzie legată de ce e bine să mănânci și ce nu când ești sănătos, dar mai ales când ai o boală gravă.
Da, și este întreținută de societate această stare de confuzie, de interesele economice de consum, cum spuneam, dar și de neștiință, de comoditatea și lipsa de interes pentru propria sănătate a fiecăruia dintre noi până la urmă.
Și poate este și o lipsă de implicare medicală.
Exact. Cu siguranță este. În cazul meu, de exemplu, deși sunt medic, a trebuit să experimentez pe propriul corp fizic acest lucru, adică diferența mea de greutate ca să înțeleg importanța unei alimentații corecte, și așa am făcut diferența pentru a mă putea dezvolta spiritual, de exemplu, în cazul meu.
Doamne doctor, dacă ar fi să pricepem sau să știm, să reîncepem să ne alimentăm corect, sănătos, ce ne-ar împiedica?
Deci un prim obstacol ar fi dependența de mâncarea gustoasă, cum spuneați dumneavoastră, pentru că este atât de ofertantă pe piață. Știți, numai dacă intri pe internet și alegi niște poze și vezi mâncarea, pur și simplu imagini cu mâncare, poftești. Faptul că ceilalți mănâncă altfel îți creează o poftă, adică numai când stai lângă persoane care mănâncă s-ar putea să nu poți să ții această dietă, da? Să mănânci corect și este greu să ții regim, să mănânci corect, ar trebui să te izolezi, deci până deprins sau până când menții constant de fapt noul stil de alimentație sănătos implementat. Mâncatul, deci, a devenit o dependență de multe ori emoțională, pentru că noi mâncăm emoțional și o să vedem acest lucru.
I think a lot of people understand fruits and vegetables are good for you, but they don't know how good the good stuff is, and they have no idea how bad the bad stuff is.
I think the addiction to food is bigger than the combination of the addiction that people have to cigarettes, alcohol, coffee, drugs.
I truly see how food can completely control someone's life, that you literally obsess over it. And it's understandable when you get in your car and you drive somewhere, how many fast food places do you go by? How many billboards do you see? You are bombarded all day long and just filled with temptation.
It's like an alcoholic. I can't have one drink. I can't have that one candy bar a week because I didn't have an off switch.
Most of the restaurants have very easily figured out that if you add cheese and butter and salt to everything, it tastes good. And so you come back over and over again. And the same thing is true for a lot of the snack foods and candies. They're just perfectly tweaked to be delicious.
So if we just look at like the average American diet, when we put in sugar, fat, and salt into our body, a couple of things happen. First, it triggers the reward system in our brain, the dopamine reward system, just like nicotine, methamphetamine, and cocaine. So they have the same effect, creating some dependence or food addiction.
Drug addicts often have this thing where they call chasing the dragon. It's the elusive first high. No other high is as good as this first high, and so they're constantly chasing it. And I've experienced that with food. Like the first bite is so amazing, but the second isn't as amazing, and the third isn't. But I just keep eating it, whether it's the Oreos or the chocolate chip cookies or the ice cream, just trying to get back to that first bliss.
What's sweet out in nature? Sweet potatoes, berries, fruit, healthy foods, right? And so, but now the industry uses that natural, healthy urge against us, right? They're chemists that spend their whole lives, working on the bliss point. The ripest peach in the world is not as sweet as Fruit Loops, right?
Within just a couple of hours of eating these foods, it's absorbed into the bloodstream and then it penetrates our cells. Sugar causes measurable inflammation inside of our artery walls, causing damage to the lining of the artery, the endothelial cells, making us more susceptible to atherosclerosis and even more susceptible to inflammation that can lead to cancer. We also know that within a couple of hours of eating sugar, it suppresses our immune system, and it's specifically the natural killer cells that help us to fight infections. And that can suppress our immune system for 4 to 5 hours. So if we kind of understand this, Americans having sugar-based breakfast, sugar-based lunch, and sugar-based dinner, they're suppressing their immune system throughout the course of the day, making themselves more susceptible to these infections that we encounter.
Realize that we are going to go through a chemical addictive withdrawal for probably 3 or 4 days, depending on the food and the frequency and the quantity at which you ate it.
If you feel a little bit bloated or a little gassy or a lot gassy, or you're going with more frequency, it's not to be concerned about. Let it pass, let your body sort of work itself out.
I know it's tough in the beginning. I know food addictions and I call it toxic hunger can make you feel bad when you're kind of like breaking those addictions. You could feel fatigued, you could feel weak and headachy. You could feel like you're emotionally attached to those foods and having almost a feeling of anxiety giving up the foods you've come to love.
Oh, I can't live without meat. Well, yeah, you can.
I always say go cold turkey, even if it's just for a short period of time. Go cold turkey for 21 days. Because the whole tapering off thing, it doesn't work with addiction. We're addicted to meat, we're addicted to dairy, there are opiates in cheeses and things like that. Plus we're just addicted to our habit patterns that we grew up with.
Imagine you're back in the 1950s, before the Surgeon General report on smoking came out, and one doctor's telling you to smoke Camels, the other doctor saying, no, smoke Luckies instead. So when 1964, when the Surgeon General report came out, they cited 7,000 studies about the dangers of smoking. 7,000. Now look, 6,000 should have been enough, right? But I mean, it had to get to that point before it could tip. And how many people had to die until that happened? And so I think we're in a very similar situation today.
My story starts a long time ago with a lot of issues with overeating, and it escalated many times up and down, a lot of yo-yo dieting. Finally, at 380 pounds and diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and hypertension on medication, I decided to make a commitment to a completely different lifestyle of eating. I was in my 49th year, and it occurred to me I wasn't going to see 50. It was a lot of sitting on the couch, watching a lot of television and eating. And everyone didn't always see the eating because I did that after they left for school or before, you know, in the car. There was a lot of secretive eating going on.
You want to believe that there is no addiction, that this is a metabolic thing and that, you know, this can be fixed. But, you know, when you start to find that, you know, the trappings of wrappers and...
I knew. I mean, it's, you know, I knew what was happening. I knew about all the things that they didn't know about.
You know, you say to yourself, okay, at this time maybe I'm 40-something years old and, you know, okay, I'm going to have all these kids. I'm going to have to do something. I have to take care of them if she's not around.
Every day I thought that they were going to find me dead in the parking lot because I was out of breath just walking from my car to my office every day.
There were a lot of things that I didn't know, I didn't understand. You know, I'm like, oh, if I could just do the math on this, it'll be better, but there is no math to this.
I couldn't do many things, and I didn't do many things because of the shame and embarrassment. I didn't want to embarrass my kids.
People make fun of them, but they don't exist, you know? And they do exist.
I was morbidly obese my entire adult life. Being obese sucks. You know that people are looking at you. You can only imagine what they're thinking about you, even though they're too polite. I was eating what most Americans consider to be a healthy diet with lean protein, so I was pretty much down to chicken and salmon as my protein. But we were cooking those proteins in butter and olive oil, and obviously it was not working. I had tried every fad diet that there was, low carb, South Beach, Atkins, Weight Watchers, to try to lose weight, and I discovered what a lot of people have, which is as long as you're doing these diets, they work great. Problem is, when you stop dieting, all the weight comes back and often more than you were in the first place.
Wisdom is the process of finding out that your intuition is wrong. It's not easy to have to learn something that goes against your instincts. For example, people have the feeling when they're sitting in a car that they're not in danger if they don't have their seatbelt on. That was sort of the way people felt in the 1950s and 60s. So your intuition doesn't understand that you're sitting in a 2-ton vehicle going 50 miles an hour and that you are actually helpless.
I thought I ate super healthy. The truth is that I was completely wrong, but the type of information that I could find available to me said that these foods were actually good for me.
I thought I was healthy because I didn't have meat in my diet, I didn't have milk in my diet, I didn't have eggs, I didn't have cheese, but I was eating all this other junk full of oil and sugar and salt and all of that.
I filled my body with protein and calories. Little did I know what it was doing to my body at that time, but I continued to eat that way all the way up through the '94 Olympics when I was competing, and thought nothing of going to a fast food restaurant and eating 2 hamburgers and a couple orders of fries and a chocolate milkshake. I had the idea that it had no consequences for me to eat this kind of food because I looked and felt great.
Well, I'm thin. I don't really need to think about that. I don't need to think of plant-based. That's for someone who's obese or overweight. But the reality is that it's not so much about the weight, because the weight is really a symptom of what's happening on the inside, and many times that symptom goes unnoticed.
I was just kind of your typical kid. I was on the yearbook. I played volleyball. So we really had no idea that anything was coming or that anything was wrong. When I was 16 years old, I was told that I had 6 months to live. So the first clue that something was actually wrong was one weekend I had gone to the Jersey Shore with my friends. But I remember we went to a diner and I had these pancakes and I could not get the pancakes in my mouth. It hurt so bad. And the next morning I woke up and this excruciating pain that felt like it would take weeks to heal was gone. But the strange thing was that same exact identical pain was in my left shoulder. And after a couple of days, it disappeared from that arm too. Not long after that, migraine started. I had this huge rash across my face, going from one cheek across my nose to the other side. My blood test showed that my kidneys were in trouble, so they sent me in for a kidney biopsy. So next thing I know, I'm going into surgery. So it was just so chaotic. And the doctor told us what happened, and they said, you're in stage 4 kidney failure. And you've got 6 months if we don't do something really, really aggressive. 6 months you'll be in dialysis or you'll be dead. So I was put on high-dose steroids. It was about 7 different pills I had to take every day. And I also was put on experimental chemotherapy to try to save my kidneys. I was told I couldn't have kids. I was told I probably wouldn't live past my 50s. I'd probably be handicapped by my 30s. Well, with lupus, your immune system's attacking your own body. And so my immune system had suddenly stopped recognizing my kidneys as my own and were attacking my kidneys, trying to kill it. I'd also developed blood clots that had happened when I was in medical school. And so I was taking blood thinners because I'd experienced a mini stroke, a transient ischemic attack. And thankfully, I didn't damage my brain, but I was in a lot of danger of dying at that point if I didn't use this blood thinner for the rest of my life. Otherwise, I was trucking through. I was 2 months away from graduating medical school. And then I met this most amazing person, Thomas Tadlock, and he just changed everything for me. And I went from only dreaming about a white coat to dreaming about a white dress. And the hardest thing I ever had to do was to tell him about my illness. And the fact that marrying me was, not going to be long term. And it was hard for him to hear. But he just said that he'd rather have a short life with me than a lifetime with someone else. So he would take care of me.
If you need a surgery or if you're in an accident and you need diagnostics, the United States is the place to be. But if you want to prevent chronic disease, we're near the bottom of the list.
We're taught to trust the medical field and take the medicine they prescribe to us.
Really, I grew up thinking that drugs, things like that from the doctor were the normal thing to do and that that's what would cure you.
And unfortunately, the pills aren't the answer, because if they were the answer, we've never had more pills in human history, and yet we've never had more chronic disease.
We need education more than medication, and our doctors are not getting this in medical school, and if they're not, then you're not getting it.
We're very focused on procedures and medications.
Medical school is pharmacology. In fact, we even learned about pharmacology during lunch. We get take out what are called drug lunches by pharmaceutical reps.
Pharmaceutical industry is like any other industry in America. They're there to make money and produce profits.
They fund medical education. That's what you learn about.
These medications, you don't get them for free. You pay a price for using medications, and they work as a permission slip. They enable people to think because their numbers look better, they're okay, while the underlying pathology advances day after day. So in a sense, they give people a false sense of security that leads them to give them permission to keep eating the same diet that caused the problem to begin with, and the inevitable consequence is their disease gets worse and worse and worse.
But don't take it if you, and it might cause, rectal bleeding, and your eye might fall out, and hey, you might even want to kill yourself. It's kind of like, really? But it's going to make me feel better, but I might want to kill myself. I think I'll feel the way I'm feeling. I'm okay.
Look, big pharma is one of the most profitable industries. The reason they're not researching new antibiotics, things that we need, is because they take it for 10 days. That's not useful. No, we want drugs you take every single day for the rest of your life, right? And what are those? Those are chronic disease drugs, right? High blood pressure medications, for example, right? You have to take them every day for the rest of your life because they don't treat the underlying cause of the
Doamne doctor, înțeleg că este necesară o abordare complet diferită despre cum trebuie să alimentăm corpul uman și trebuie să începem cu sistemul medical, cel care trebuie să informeze corect populația legat de hrana corectă pentru a menține starea de sănătate, dar și pentru a rezolva problema bolilor cronice, o problemă spinoasă în medicină.
Așa este, foarte spinoasă, pentru că sunt foarte multe boli cronice. Nu suntem obișnuiți ca medici să recomandăm diete decât pentru anumite afecțiuni și în mică măsură. Da, știm să recomandăm diete pentru hepatite, pentru gastrite, pentru ulcere, învățăm acest lucru în facultate, dar nu știm să aducem în spațiul pacientului ideea unei alimentații sănătoase, adică bazată pe hrană simplă, neprelucrată și mai multe legume, fructe, fără zahăr, de exemplu, fără aditivi, fără carne, de exemplu, decât dacă e legat de post și cumva noi facem acest post și îi recomandăm pacientului.
Suntem în postul Paștelui și mâncăm mâncare de post cu multe euri.
Așa este. Este și aici industria alimentară a fost foarte creativă, din păcate. În general, lăsată liberă, piața oferă ce se cere. Deci nu ce e sănătos și este ce ar fi necesar pentru o sănătate corectă a populației.
Deși e o problemă de interes național pentru fiecare țară în parte.
Da, într-adevăr, și și medicina nu se implică foarte tare. Starea de sănătate a ființei umane este influențată de perturbări, de dezechilibre energetice în toate corpurile, de emoțiile noastre, știți, de gândurile noastre, de suferințele sufletești, atât de des întâlnite, dar cât de sănătos este corpul fizic sau cât de bolnav are legătură cu toate acestea, adică cu modul cum noi ne hrănim.
Dar și cât de multă atenție îi acordăm în fizic. E necesară mișcarea, hrana, apa, relaxarea. E un vehicul.
Corpul nostru. Da, e un vehicul de care ne folosim, de fapt este un vehicul al sufletului nostru. Important este, ca să concluzionăm, pentru viața noastră este foarte important acest corp fizic, deoarece el ne dă posibilitatea existenței noastre în această dimensiune terestră.